Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to the AEW Dynamite review. And Dynamite tonight was a awesome show. Really enjoyed Dynamite tonight, and the show centered around the Blood and Guts match, which I thought was insane. It was a good match. It was the best match of the night. And I know a lot of people weren't happy about the end from what I seen online, but I did a live reactions video to the Blood and Guts match. If you guys haven't seen it, go check it out. And like when I'm logged out of like my YouTube account, the video doesn't show up, but when I log in, it does show up in my videos. It's YouTube being glitchy again. But my video, my live reactions video is up, but it's just YouTube being glitchy as always. But before we got the Blood and Guts match, we saw Jon Moxley and Eddie Kingston versus Kenny Omega and Michael Nakazawa. We saw Cody Rhodes versus QT Marshall. Britt Baker was in action. We also saw the Varsity Blondes, Griff Garrison and Brian Pillman Jr. versus SCU versus the Acclaimed versus the Jurassic Express. This was a title eliminator match where the winners will get to face the Young Bucks next week on Dynamite for the AEW World Tag Team titles. And, of course, the main event, we had the Blood and Guts match. But overall, Dynamite was a good show tonight. It was very enjoyable. It was a great show tonight. But let's start with the review. Let's get on with the review. So Dynamite opened up tonight with Kenny Omega and Michael Nakazawa versus Jon Moxley and Eddie Kingston. And this was a good match here. Don Callis and Michael Nakazawa ended up coming out. And then Moxley and Eddie Kingston. Don Callis ended up cutting off Justin Roberts on commentary to make an announcement on Kenny Omega. Don Callis ended up saying that Kenny Omega isn't here. But in my mind, I'm like, Kenny Omega is going to attack, either Moxley or Eddie Kingston. So it was just all a setup. So they were saying on commentary, they were like, oh, we just saw Kenny Omega backstage. So Don Callis then announces that Michael Nakazawa is going to wrestle Eddie Kingston and Jon Moxley on his own. So then we saw Moxley and Eddie Kingston. They ended up making their way through the stands of the Daily's Place. And right when they made their way down, Kenny Omega ended up attacking both Kingston and Moxley from behind with the AEW World Championship. So the match starts off with Kenny Omega being up on Eddie Kingston, and he ended up tagging Michael Nakazawa in. Omega and Nakazawa end up being down on Eddie Kingston, and Moxley then came in. He ended up tossing Michael Nakazawa out of the ring. So Moxley then ended up hitting a side slam to Kenny Omega. Omega then went out to the floor. Moxley ended up delivering a suicide dive to both Omega and Nakazawa. So JR on commentary, he was like, oh, is this a Texas Tornado tag match? Which it did feel. It did feel like a tornado tag match. So we had Moxley and Kingston end up taking down Nakazawa back in the ring. So Moxley went for the cover, and then Omega ended up breaking it up. Nakazawa then delivered a low blow to Eddie Kingston, and the referee had his back turned, so the referee didn't even see Nakazawa low blow Eddie Kingston, because the referee was trying to break up Omega and Moxley. So Omega then beat up on Eddie Kingston. Omega dragged Eddie Kingston's face along the top rope. So Omega and Nakazawa were being booed by the crowd. Omega was delivering back and forth chops to Eddie Kingston. Omega ended up delivering a kick to the head to Eddie Kingston, and then he did a second rope moonsault, but Eddie Kingston moved out of the way. So Kingston ended up delivering a clothesline. At the end of the match, Kingston ended up tossing Kenny Omega out to the floor. Omega didn't want to get back into the ring, so Eddie Kingston ended up inviting Kenny Omega to come back to the ring. So Omega had enough of it. He ended up saying, "The hell with it." So Omega made his way backstage. Moxley was choking Michael Nakazawa, and he ended up delivering a half and half suplex combo on Michael Nakazawa. And so there you go. Moxley and Eddie Kingston ended up winning the match, which I knew was going to happen. But overall, it was a good match. Post-match, you had the Young Bucks, Matt and Nick, ended up coming out, and they were talking trash to Eddie Kingston and Jon Moxley. And the Good Brothers, Gallows and Anderson, they end up running to the ring. They end up attacking Kingston and Moxley from behind. So the Good Brothers end up delivering the Magic Killer on Moxley. Matt Jackson ended up taking off his sneaker. He ended up smacking Moxley with it. Matt then ended up super kicking Moxley. So Nick Jackson delivered a super kick to Eddie Kingston. And of course, we saw Kenny Omega ended up coming back out. Brandon Cutler, who is the Elite's personal cameraman, also came out. Omega got back into the ring, and he ended up hitting the one-winged angel on Eddie Kingston. So we had Kenny Omega then pin Eddie Kingston with Nick Jackson end up doing a Mach 3 count. And, they were just taunting. And that was basically that. So it looks like we're going to be getting Moxley and Eddie Kingston versus the Young Bucks at Double or Nothing. I know that's going to be coming. So we're going to be getting that. So I think the tag team titles are going to be on the line at Double or Nothing. Overall, it was a good match between them. So then they announced that it's going to be at Double or Nothing. It's going to be Hikaru Shida versus Britt Baker. And the AEW Women's World title is going to be on the line. But I think it's time Hikaru Shida drops the title. I think Britt Baker's going to be winning it at Double or Nothing. As much as I want to see Jade Cargill get put in the AEW Women's World title picture, have her get an opportunity for her to get to the title. But apparently, I think Britt Baker is going to defeat Hikaru Shida at Double or Nothing. And so Britt Baker, I think, is going to be the new Women's World Champion. And she's going to have a good run with the title. And then, who knows, maybe they'll turn Britt Baker babyface. I'm just predicting it here. Maybe sometime down the line they make Britt Baker a babyface, and then I think the next woman to be in line for the title will be Jade Cargill. I think somewhere down the line we're going to be getting Britt Baker versus Jade Cargill for the title, and I think, whenever that time comes, Jade Cargill is going to be the next woman to hold the AEW Women's World title. So I'm just predicting that. Might not happen. So that's just my prediction. So that was announced for Double or Nothing, Hikaru Shida versus Britt Baker. And I heard that Double or Nothing is going to be, it's going to have fans in full capacity. So Double or Nothing is going to have a full capacity crowd, which is awesome. Can't wait to hear, all the crowd make noise. So that's definitely going to be interesting again to see. So then we had QT Marshall versus Cody Rhodes. QT Marshall ended up coming out along with his faction, the Factory. Cody Rhodes came out along with Arn Anderson. This was a decent match. Cody Rhodes started off the match by attacking QT Marshall. QT Marshall ended up taking Cody's weight belt. QT took Cody's weight belt and smacked Cody over the back with it. So Cody ended up getting back up. Cody was looking to go for a spinning power slam, but QT Marshall ended up avoiding it. So QT was just punching Cody Rhodes. Cody delivered a thumb to the eye to QT Marshall, and he delivered a running elbow. Cody ended up heading up to the top, but QT Marshall ended up hitting a double underhook suplex and a German suplex to Cody Rhodes as Cody ended up rolling out to the floor. So QT Marshall and Arn Anderson end up getting into it on the outside. They got into a bit of a brawl. Arn Anderson ended up grinding QT Marshall's face into the ring post. So I'm like, wait a minute. Anderson ended up doing that to QT Marshall. Isn't that supposed to be a disqualification? Clearly, they didn't pay attention to that. So Arn Anderson was tossed from ringside because of that. So QT Marshall ended up getting back in the ring, and it was back and forth between him and Cody. Cody delivered a sunset flip, and he ended up pulling QT Marshall's trunks down. And Cody Rhodes ended up hitting a DDT, which sent QT head first into the top turnbuckle. Cody Rhodes ended up going up to the top and delivered an awesome moonsault to QT Marshall. He went for the cover, which QT ended up kicking out too. You saw QT end up looking to go for a diamond cutter, but no, he didn't go for that. QT tried to go for a power bomb, and he then hit a buckle bomb. And what was really cool in this part of the match was QT was trying to go for a tombstone pile driver to Cody Rhodes. So Cody ended up reversing it. And then QT reversed it. And then Cody ended up reversing it again. So Cody Rhodes finally ended up hitting the tombstone pile driver on QT Marshall. And he went for the cover. And QT ended up kicking out of two. And I'm like, that's crazy. Kicking out of a tombstone pile driver. But I like the reversals that they did, with QT and Cody trying to hit the tombstone pile driver. So Cody ended up ducking a punch from QT Marshall, and Cody went for the crossroads. Cody went for the cover, and QT ended up kicking out of the crossroads. So QT ended up delivering the middle finger to Cody Rhodes. So Cody ended up locking in the figure 4, and QT ended up tapping out. So, and then Cody looked to had a cut near his eye because he was bleeding. So there you go. Cody ended up winning the match by locking in the figure 4 on QT Marshall. Post-match, we had Anthony Ogogo, the bronze Olympic medalist. He ended up heading out to the ring, and he ended up punching Cody right in the midsection. So Cody then dropped down to the mat. Anthony Ogogo took the British flag, the UK flag, and he covered Cody with it. So that was that. So then we saw Alex Marvez. He was up in the stands of the Daily's Place. Marvez was talking with Scorpio Sky and Ethan Page. Scorpio Sky ended up quoting Jim Carrey's Riddler from Batman Forever, where Scorpio Sky was like, "Riddle me this, riddle me that. Who's afraid of the big black bat?" Which is exactly what Jim Carrey said as the Riddler in Batman Forever, which Batman Forever is a guilty pleasure of mine. I really enjoy that film. It's a hell of a lot better than Batman and Robin. Batman and Robin, piece of shit film, with George Clooney playing Batman and the stupid Bat credit card. Just awful film, Batman and Robin is. So Scorpio Sky ended up saying that Sting is nothing more than a mosquito sucking on the blood of AEW. But apparently Sting is out of action because Scorpio Sky ended up putting him in the heel hook. So Scorpio Sky ended up saying that we kill mosquitoes. And he ended up letting Sting know that he's overstayed his welcome. So Scorpio Sky was like, "I'm the franchise now, bitch." So Ethan Page ended up saying that he and Darby Allin have had a lot of history, and that there are matches that nobody has ever seen. Page ended up going on to say that Darby Allin's paint on his face is to cover up a dent he once put in Darby Allin's forehead, and also the piece of metal that he had to have put in his arm. So Darby Allin then ended up attacking Ethan Page out of nowhere. Darby Allin threw Scorpio Sky into some garbage cans. He delivered the coffin drop onto Ethan Page. Scorpio Sky then ended up smacking Darby Allin with a trash can. Page ended up having some spiked boots that he was wearing. He ended up shoving Darby Allin's face down on the spiked boots. And so Page then ended up throwing Darby Allin down the concrete steps of the Daily's Place. So we had the medical personnel. They ended up checking on Darby Allin. And then Dynamite went to commercial. And on the picture-in-picture, if you were watching on TNT, Darby Allin was able to make his way to the back. But I thought this segment was pretty good. Very old schoolish, though. But seeing Darby Allin end up, getting thrown down the concrete steps, thought it was pretty insane. And it looked like Darby Allin, from what I saw, was bleeding a little bit from him being tossed down the steps. So then we have Britt Baker versus Julia Hart. Britt Baker came out along with Reba. Julia Hart, not related to the Harts, Bret Hart and them. So, but this was a very quick match. This was a squash match. Britt Baker ended up winning. She ended up applying the lockjaw on Julia Hart. So that was that. Just a very easy win for Britt Baker. And then we saw Taz. Taz ended up talking about the frog splash from Christian Cage and the kill switch. Taz ended up showing Christian having a lack of explosion from his quads to get bigger impact on his frog splash. Taz then ended up criticizes Christian's kill switch finisher. So we then saw, the video of Hobbs when he threw Christian around in the match that Christian and Hobbs had. Taz then also ended up mentioning how Brian Cage defeated Hangman Adam Page. So that was that. And then we saw the Varsity Blondes versus SCU versus the Acclaimed versus the Jurassic Express. This was a title eliminator match. The winners of this match will get to face the Young Bucks next week on Dynamite for the tag team titles. So we had Varsity Blondes come out. They made their entrance. And then we had SCU, and then the Jurassic Express, and then the Acclaimed. Anthony Bowens was in the match. He was coming off of a knee injury that he sustained. So the match started off with Frankie Kazarian and Jungle Boy starting off the match. Kazarian ended up trying to go for pinfall attempts. Jungle Boy ended up delivering a few of his own. None of them were able to get a 3 count. Max Caster ended up coming in. He ended up sending Jungle Boy into the corner. Brian Pillman Jr. then ended up doing the same. So we had the Acclaimed. They went to work on Christopher Daniels. And Max Caster ended up going for the cover. Christopher Daniels ended up kicking out at 2. Anthony Bowens came in. And he was just pounding on Christopher Daniels, keeping him in the corner. So Christopher Daniels was able to fight back, and Luchasaurus then ended up coming into the match. Luchasaurus was delivering some chops and kicks to both the Acclaimed. At the end of the match, we had SCU win the match, where Frank Kazarian and Christopher Daniels delivered the BME. So SCU ended up winning the match. SCU will get to face the Young Bucks next week for the AEW World Tag Team titles. So it should be a good match there. So we all know Jon Moxley is going to be defending the IWGP United States Championship against Yuji Nagata. I think that's how you pronounce his name. The title is going to be defended next week on Dynamite. Nagata ended up saying that he accepts Moxley's challenge. And that he ended up calling Moxley a little punk. Moxley ended up saying that Nagata is going to learn his mouth will get him into trouble, especially when he's stepping in the ring with him. Moxley ended up saying that people have wondered for a while when Nagata just won't get up again. And everyone is going to learn very soon. So that's going to be a pretty awesome match to see next week. The IWGP United States Championship is going to be defended in AEW. So that's going to be awesome. So then we had Tony Schiavone. Tony Schiavone end up announcing Kenny Omega, who is out for a big announcement for Double or Nothing. So Kenny Omega ended up coming out along with Michael Nakazawa, and Kenny Omega was, of course, carrying out all three of the titles that he carries: the AAA Mega Championship, the Impact title, and, of course, the AEW World Championship. So Omega ended up piping up the crowd for the Blood and Guts match, and Tony Schiavone ended up saying that the two top contenders will go one-on-one next week. It will be Pac and Orange Cassidy, with the winner facing Kenny Omega at Double or Nothing. So Kenny Omega ended up talking about the rankings and also why the wins matter. So Kenny Omega ended up bringing up his history that he had with Pac and how people would want to see them have a big rematch. So he ended up saying that he wants to see that match happen and wants Tony Schiavone to just announce that match. So then out came freshly squeezed Orange Cassidy. So Orange Cassidy got a big pop from the crowd, and Omega was laughing at the thought of Orange Cassidy even win the match and Orange Cassidy facing him. Omega ended up saying that he's a feel-good wrestler, as people like him because they can be like him. So Omega ended up saying that Orange Cassidy isn't championship material, except for the sunglasses, which Omega was like, you clearly ripped off from me. So Kenny Omega then ended up taking Orange Cassidy's sunglasses off, and he ends up checking them out, and Omega was like, oh, these shades, these glasses, they are legit. So Omega wants to say that Orange Cassidy won't ever take his world championship, but he did take up his time, and he's going to take something of Orange Cassidy's. So Omega ended up putting Orange Cassidy's shades on Michael Nakazawa, and Omega was like, they look better on it. They look better on you. So Omega ended up telling Orange Cassidy that maybe in 10 years, when Orange Cassidy becomes a full-grown man, maybe he will see him in the ring. So Kenny Omega ended up heading off, and Orange Cassidy looked to be annoyed with what Omega had to say. So that was that. Thought this was pretty decent. So then we had Tony Schiavone still out on the stage, and Tony Schiavone ended up interviewing Miro. Miro ended up taking the mic away from Tony Schiavone. He ended up saying that nobody is going to distract him from his destiny. Miro went on to say that if someone has a title, they have a problem. So Miro ended up pulling out a contract, and the contract was signed. So Miro then ended up announcing 7 days from tonight, he's going to be facing Darby Allin for the TNT Championship next week on Dynamite. So Miro ended up saying that next week the world finds out when the mind, who doesn't mind dying, meets the man who doesn't mind killing him. So there you go. That's set in stone for next week on Dynamite. Miro versus Darby Allin for the TNT Championship. So then, they went over what we're going to see next week on Dynamite. We're going to have Tony Schiavone interview Jay Cargill. Moxley versus Yuji Nagata for the IWGP United States Championship. That should be a pretty good match there. We have the Young Bucks versus SCU for the World Tag Team titles. Obviously, the Bucks are going to retain. We're going to have Cody Rhodes make a Double or Nothing announcement. And, of course, Darby Allin versus Miro TNT Championship. So that's what we're going to see next week on Dynamite. So then we had the main event, the Blood and Guts match, the Pinnacle versus the Inner Circle, which the whole show was revolved around. The match was insane. I was hyped up for the match, and it was bloody, and it was just awesome. Very entertaining. I know there are people who didn't like the ending because the end of the match, you had MJF and Jericho on the top of the cage. So we had MJF looking over the edge of the cell. And MJF ended up saying that if the Inner Circle doesn't surrender, he's throwing Jericho off the top of the cage. So Guevara was telling MJF not to do it. And so Guevara ended up surrendering the Inner Circle to save Jericho. And because of that, the Pinnacle ended up winning the match. So this is going to lead to something with Jericho and the Inner Circle. I think Jericho is going to be upset with Sammy Guevara. Who knows? Maybe Sammy Guevara could be with the Pinnacle. So who knows? Maybe Sammy Guevara is going to screw the Inner Circle and be with MJF and the Pinnacle. But that's my prediction. So, but I know Jericho's going to be upset with Guevara. So, post-match, we had MJF. He was taunting the crowd. He then lifted Jericho up. He ended up shoving Jericho off the top of the cell. And Jericho went through the stage. And you could tell that, he went through, when he went through the stage, there was like pillows and mattresses that he landed on. Of course, we had the medical personnel come there and check on Jericho. And then you hear MJF yells out to Jericho, "Thank you." So MJF got off the top of the cage, and that was how Dynamite went off the air tonight. But overall, it was an insane match. Though it was an awesome match. I was hyped up for it. Lots of blood. Lots of weapons. You had the turnbuckle being taken off by Shawn Spears. But it was all out awesome. Even though people, said, "Oh yeah, that ending was just, a letdown." But match was awesome. Go look at my live reactions video to the match. I talk about, what was going on in the match as it happened. So, but definitely go check out my live reactions to the Blood and Guts match. But overall, Dynamite was a great show tonight. Awesome show. But anyways, that's it for the Dynamite review. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this review. Definitely give the video a thumbs up. Comment, subscribe. There will be no SmackDown review on Friday. Just wanted to put that out. I'll be working when SmackDown is on, so there will be no review. But until then, I'll see you all later.